When my mom said my brother's family could move into my spare apartment, I agreed, until she saw who was already living there. I never imagined one simple favor would dig up the most painful chapter of my life. I had just started to feel proud of myself again. After years of being compared to my golden boy brother Ryan, I finally owned my own home. A small but cozy place with a spare apartment attached to it. I rented it out to help with my mortgage, and honestly, it gave me comfort knowing someone else's presence made the house feel less empty. Then came Mom's call. She sounded emotional, talking about how Ryan's family was going through a tough time. Their landlord had raised the rent, and Samantha had lost her job. "You have space, Emily," she said gently, like I'd be heartless to say no. "It's family." I wanted to say no, to remind her how Ryan always took without asking, how Samantha once took even more. But the guilt crept in fast, and before I knew it, I heard myself saying, "Okay, they can stay for a while." Mom insisted on coming over to check the place before they moved in. I didn't mind, until she froze on my doorstep, her face turning pale the moment the apartment door opened. There, standing casually with a cup of coffee, was Jack Reynolds, my ex-fiancé, the man who destroyed me. For a second, everything went silent. My chest tightened, memories flashing like a cruel movie reel. The wedding plans, the laughter, the nights I spent crying after discovering he was cheating on me with none other than my brother's wife, Samantha. I hadn't seen him in years. "Jack," Mom whispered, her voice trembling between shock and disgust. He looked at her, then at me, eyes widening as recognition hit. "Emily," he breathed, setting his mug down. I didn't let him finish. "You live here?" Mom's voice rose, sharp now, full of disbelief. "Emily, what is this?" I could barely speak. "He moved in months ago. Different last name. I didn't realize who he was until last week." Jack rubbed his neck awkwardly, mumbling something about bad timing, about wanting to make things right. But I could feel the weight of every lie he'd ever told pressing against my chest. Mom turned to me, her tone changing from shock to authority. "He needs to go. Today." I nodded slowly, though inside, something unexpected flickered. Not just pain, but a strange sense of power. 2 years ago, I was the broken one, left behind while they built their perfect little family. Now, he was the one standing on my property, dependent on my mercy. I met his eyes and said quietly, "We'll talk later." That was the first time in a long while I realized this story wasn't about what they did to me anymore. It was about what I was going to do next. After Mom left in shock, the house felt heavier than ever. I stood in the kitchen, staring out the window toward the small apartment where Jack lived. I couldn't believe he'd been there all this time, just a few steps away from me. I had rented the place to a man named Jonathan Reed, who claimed to be a traveling consultant. His references had checked out, and he'd paid the deposit up front. There was nothing suspicious then. I never connected that name to him. Now everything made sense, the way he avoided long conversations, how he kept his curtains closed, how he always paid rent through bank transfers instead of handing me cash. He'd been hiding, probably hoping I'd never notice. That night, I decided to face him. When I knocked on the door, he opened it slowly, looking like he'd been expecting me. "Emily," he said quietly, "I know how this looks." I kept my arms crossed. "It looks like you lied to rent my apartment." He sighed and leaned against the doorframe. "I didn't plan it like this. I didn't even know this place was yours until I moved in. When I found out, I thought about leaving, but I needed somewhere to stay." His calm tone made me even angrier. "You thought staying here, right next to me, was a good idea?" He didn't answer. Instead, he said, "Please, just give me a few more weeks. I'll move out once I find another place. I promise." Every part of me wanted to tell him to get out that second. But a part of me, the one that still carried the pain he caused, wanted to look him in the eyes and understand why. I wanted answers, not for closure, but for strength. So I said, "You can stay for a short time. But we're not friends, and I don't want to see you unless it's necessary." He nodded, murmured thanks, and closed the door. Over the next few days, I caught glimpses of him leaving early and coming home late, like he was trying not to be seen. I tried to ignore him, but the memories came back in waves. The nights before our wedding, when I thought he was working late, not realizing he was with Samantha, my brother's wife. I remembered finding the messages, the hotel receipts, the photos. It wasn't just betrayal, it was humiliation. Seeing Jack again reopened every wound I'd tried to bury. But this time, I wasn't crying on the bathroom floor. I was stronger now. One evening, he stopped me in the driveway. "I know I don't deserve your kindness," he said quietly, "but I'm sorry for everything. I ruined a lot of lives." I looked straight at him. "You did," I said softly, "and you don't get to fix it by just saying sorry." He nodded, his eyes filled with guilt, then walked back to the apartment. As the door closed behind him, I realized something. I wasn't scared of my past anymore. I was finally facing it, and for the first time, it was him who couldn't look me in the eye. I was getting ready to leave for work when a car pulled up in front of my house. It was Ryan's silver SUV. My stomach tightened. He hadn't told me they were coming. Before I could even step outside, Ryan got out, smiling like everything was fine, and waved. Then Samantha stepped out of the passenger seat, holding their little boy's hand. My chest went cold. Seeing her again after everything felt unreal, like the world was playing a cruel joke on me. She looked exactly the same as before, polished, confident, pretending nothing had ever happened. "Emily, we came early," she said brightly, her voice too cheerful. "Hope you don't mind." I forced a smile, though my hands were shaking. "You should have called first," I said quietly. Ryan laughed like it was no big deal. "Mom said you wouldn't mind. We figured we'd move our stuff in today." He opened the trunk, pulling out bags and boxes, acting like this was already his place. Mom got out of the car next, carrying a small plant like it was some kind of peace offering. "Isn't this exciting?" she said, trying to sound upbeat. The family together again. I wanted to tell her it wasn't exciting. It was torture. Samantha stood there, looking around my home, her eyes landing on the small apartment door at the back of the yard. She looked curious, but I could see something flicker in her expression, like fear. Before I could say anything, the apartment door opened. Jack stepped out, holding his keys. The moment Samantha saw him, all the color drained from her face. She froze, gripping her son's shoulder. Ryan's cheerful mood vanished in an instant. Jack stopped too, his body stiffening when he saw them. No one spoke. The air felt thick, like the world had stopped breathing. Mom looked from one face to another, completely confused. "Wait," she said slowly. "You all know each other?" I didn't answer. I just watched the lies unravel in front of me. Samantha looked like she wanted to disappear, and Ryan looked furious, though I couldn't tell if it was anger at her or at me for letting this happen. Jack tried to speak. "I didn't know." Samantha cut him off. "We should go," she whispered to Ryan, pulling at his arm. But Ryan didn't move. His eyes darted between her and Jack, realization setting in. "You've got to be kidding me," he muttered. "You're still in touch with him?" Samantha's lips trembled. "No, he's just..." "Enough," I said finally. My voice was calm, but my heart pounded. "You all came here pretending to start fresh, but none of you were honest about anything. You wanted to live in my home while still hiding your mess." Mom looked stunned, trying to make sense of it all, but I didn't explain. I just turned and walked toward my door, leaving them to face each other. Behind me, I could hear Ryan yelling, Samantha crying, and Jack trying to talk over both of them. For once, I didn't feel small or powerless. I didn't owe any of them explanations. They had built this storm with their lies. Now they could deal with the thunder themselves. After that ugly scene in the driveway, no one spoke to me for a few days. I thought maybe they'd finally realized how wrong they were. But instead, Mom showed up at my door one morning holding a basket of muffins, acting like everything was normal. She sat on my couch, crossed her legs, and started with, "Honey, we need to talk about what happened. You can't keep acting like this." I felt my jaw tighten. "Like what?" "Like you're still angry," she said, her tone soft but condescending. "It's been years, Emily. People make mistakes. You have to let it go." I stared at her, trying to keep calm. Mom, they didn't just make a mistake. Samantha cheated with the man I was going to marry, and Ryan helped her hide it. She sighed, shaking her head like I was exaggerating. You don't know what really happened. Maybe you misunderstood things back then. I'm sure they regret it now. Ryan's been through a lot too, you know. That was it. The familiar ache in my chest returned. The same one I'd felt every time she brushed off my pain as drama. You're defending them again, I said quietly. You always do. Mom frowned. I'm not defending anyone. I just think you need to stop living in the past. It's exhausting for everyone. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My voice trembled, but I didn't hold back anymore. While I was planning my wedding, Samantha and Jack were sneaking around behind my back. I found messages between them, pictures, plans to meet when I was working late shifts. Ryan knew the whole time and told me I was imagining things. You know what you said back then? You said I should be grateful to have a man like Jack. You told me to apologize when I confronted him. Her face went pale, but she stayed quiet. I lost everything. I went on. My savings, my home, my self-respect. I worked double shifts to rebuild my life while you were celebrating Ryan's promotions and babysitting their kid. Now you want them to move into my home like nothing happened. Mom looked uncomfortable, glancing at the floor. Emily, that was years ago. You're successful now. You've moved on. I laughed bitterly. You think success erases betrayal? For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she muttered, You're overreacting. You always have. Something in me snapped. The calm, patient version of myself was gone. You know what, Mom? Maybe I am dramatic. Maybe I'm tired of pretending everything's fine, just to make you comfortable. You've protected them for so long you can't even see how cruel it is. She stood up, her face stiff. I came here to make peace, not to fight. Peace would mean admitting what really happened, I said quietly. But you won't, because that would mean seeing your perfect son for who he really is. She picked up her purse and left without another word. I stood by the window, watching her drive away, my heart pounding. But for the first time, I didn't cry. I finally accepted that I couldn't change her. If I wanted justice, I'd have to get it on my own. Days passed after my argument with Mom, and I tried to focus on work, but I couldn't shake the anger building inside me. Every time I saw Jack leaving for his job, the urge to make him pay grew stronger. I didn't want loud revenge or public drama. I wanted something quiet, smart, and final. One evening, I knocked on his door again. He opened it slowly, looking uneasy. I forced a calm smile. You can stay a little longer, I said. It's better than rushing out and ending up somewhere worse. He looked surprised but relieved. Thank you, Emily. I'll be gone soon, I promise. I nodded and left, pretending everything was fine. Inside, I was already planning what would come next. I started digging into old files I'd kept from the time we were together. Bank records, old emails, and shared accounts we once had. That's when I found something I'd forgotten. Jack had transferred part of our wedding fund into an investment that later disappeared. When I confronted him back then, he claimed it was a misunderstanding. Now I knew it wasn't. I spent nights collecting every detail. Proof of what he took, the fake accounts, the transactions tied to his name. It turned out he'd been in trouble before for manipulating property deals. He wasn't just a liar. He was still the same man who used people and walked away clean. One evening, I waited for him outside as he returned home. We need to talk, I said. He hesitated but followed me inside. I know what you've done, I said calmly. Not just to me, but to others. I've got everything, your fake investments, the accounts you used to move money. You've been running the same game for years, haven't you? He froze, the color draining from his face. Emily, it's not what you think. Those were old deals, and Save it, I cut in. Here's the deal. You're going to help me fix what you destroyed. You'll get me every cent I lost back. If you don't, I'll make sure the right people see everything I've found. His jaw tightened. You're threatening me? No, I said, leaning forward. I'm giving you a chance to do one decent thing before your lies catch up to you. He didn't answer right away. Then he nodded slowly, his voice shaking. Fine. I'll do what you want." As he left, I watched him from the window. I could tell he was nervous, maybe even scared. That was good. For once, he wasn't the one in control. Later that night, I sat at my desk, adding the last few documents to a folder labeled Truth. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about balance. Jack had ruined my life once, and Ryan had helped cover it up. Now I had something that could destroy both of them if I wanted. The best part, they had no idea I was already pulling the strings. By the end of the week, I decided it was time to end the lies once and for all. I invited everyone over for a Sunday dinner: Mom, Ryan, Samantha, and even Jack. I told them I wanted to make peace, to start fresh. They all accepted without hesitation, thinking I'd finally moved on. That was exactly what I wanted them to believe. I spent the day preparing a nice meal, setting the table, lighting candles, and opening a bottle of red wine. Everything looked calm and warm, but inside, I was steadying myself for what was about to happen. When they arrived, I greeted them with a smile, pretending nothing was wrong. Mom looked proud, clearly happy that her children were finally getting along. Ryan and Samantha came holding hands, trying to act like a normal couple. Jack arrived last, wearing a polite expression, as if he hadn't caused any of this. I could almost laugh at how fake the whole scene looked. We sat down, and for a while I let the small talk flow. Mom went on about how strong families overcome anything. Ryan bragged about work. Samantha complimented the food with that practiced sweetness she always used when she was hiding something. Jack stayed quiet, sipping his wine and avoiding my eyes. I poured everyone another glass and kept my tone light. "It feels nice, doesn't it?" I said. "All of us together after so long." Mom nodded, smiling. "This is how it should be. I'm proud of you all. Ryan and Samantha are such a perfect example of what marriage takes: commitment and forgiveness." That was the moment. I set my glass down slowly. "Perfect family, huh?" I said softly, reaching into the folder I had placed beside me. "Then maybe you should all see what that perfection really looked like 2 years ago." I pulled out several printed pages and spread them across the table. Emails, photos, and messages. Every single one from Samantha and Jack's affair. The room went dead silent. Samantha's face drained of color, and Ryan froze mid-breath. Jack looked like he wanted to disappear. Mom blinked, confused at first, then looked down at the papers. "Emily, what is this?" "It's the truth," I said quietly. "The truth you all pretended didn't exist. The affair you told me to forget. The betrayal you said I imagined. And here's the proof." Ryan grabbed the papers, his voice shaking. "You knew him before. How could this?" Samantha whispered. "Emily, please don't." "Don't what?" I interrupted. "Tell Mom what you both did while I was planning my wedding. Or show Ryan that Jack wasn't just your friend." Mom's expression changed from confusion to shock. "Samantha, tell me this isn't true." No one answered. The silence said everything. Ryan stood up suddenly, knocking his chair back. "You lied to me," he yelled at Samantha, his voice breaking. She started crying, reaching for him, but he pulled away. I stayed seated, calm, watching everything unravel. Years of secrets exploded in minutes. For once, I didn't feel angry. I just felt free. As Mom tried to calm them, I stood and quietly started clearing the table. The chaos behind me was loud, but I felt peace for the first time in years. The truth had finally spoken for itself. The moment Ryan stormed out of the house, the whole place fell silent. His footsteps echoed down the driveway until the sound faded completely. Samantha sat there shaking, wiping her tears, her mascara running down her face. Jack kept his head down, his jaw clenched. Mom stared at the mess on the table, like she still couldn't believe what she'd just seen. I stood there, my hands resting on the back of a chair, trying to steady myself. Everything I'd been holding in for years was finally out in the open. But instead of satisfaction, there was this strange emptiness inside me. Samantha finally broke the silence. "Emily, I didn't mean for it to happen like that," she said softly, her voice trembling. "I was lonely. Ryan was always working, and Jack was there. He listened to me when no one else did." I looked at her, almost in disbelief. You were lonely? I repeated. You slept with the man I was supposed to marry, and that's your excuse? Her face twisted with guilt. It wasn't planned. I was confused. We both were. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. You weren't confused, Samantha. You were selfish. You knew exactly what you were doing, and so did he. I turned to Jack, who still hadn't said a word. You didn't just cheat, you both built your happiness on destroying mine. He looked up finally, his eyes full of shame. I don't have anything to say that can change what happened, he murmured. You're right, I said coldly. Because there's nothing left to say. Mom spoke for the first time, her voice weak. I never thought something like this could happen in our family. I just wanted everyone to get along. I turned to her. That's the problem, Mom. You wanted peace so badly that you ignored what was real. You defended lies because it was easier than facing the truth. She didn't reply. She just sat there, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. Jack stood up slowly, glancing between us. I'll leave, he said quietly. I shouldn't be here. Good idea, I replied. You should have been gone a long time ago. He nodded once and walked out without looking back. The door shut behind him with a dull thud that seemed to echo through the house. Samantha tried to speak again, but I stopped her. You should go too. Ryan might forgive you, but I never will. You took everything that mattered to me and acted like it was nothing. You don't deserve understanding. You deserve to live with what you did. She sobbed quietly, gathered her purse, and left without another word. The house felt strangely calm after they were gone. Mom remained seated for a while, silent and pale. Finally, she said softly, I didn't realize how blind I've been. I didn't answer. I just started clearing the table, one plate at a time. The air smelled like wine and tension. My heart was heavy, but under that weight, there was something else, a quiet strength. For the first time in years, I wasn't the one broken by their choices. They had all faced the truth tonight. And this time, I wasn't the one who had to pick up the pieces. After that night, I decided I was done talking. I didn't need more confrontations or tears. I wanted action, quiet, clean, final. Jack had ruined enough of my life, but I still had something he didn't know about. Information. Years ago, when we were engaged, I helped him organize his real estate files. I remembered how careless he was with contracts, how he'd cut corners, and how some of those deals looked off even then. Now, I went back through old emails and documents I had saved on my drive. The deeper I looked, the clearer it became. Jack had been bending the law for years. I didn't want to go public or make a scene. I gathered everything, printed it neatly, and sent it anonymously to the licensing board and the state's financial crimes office. No signature. No note. Just the truth in black and white. A few weeks later, I saw the news online. Jack's license had been revoked pending investigation. His company's name was everywhere, tied to words like fraud and forgery. He lost his clients, his reputation, and the only thing that gave him status. I didn't smile when I read it. I just closed the article and moved on with my day. That part of my life was officially over. There was one last piece of him left to deal with. The spare apartment he used to live in when he said he needed space. Back then, I had held on to it, unsure why. Now it was time to let it go. I listed it quietly, didn't tell anyone, and within a month, it was sold. The profit was enough to clear every single debt he'd left me with. Signing that final document felt like closing the last chapter of a painful book. Meanwhile, Ryan and Samantha's perfect little world began to fall apart. News of her affair with Jack spread quickly. Small towns have long memories and fast gossip. I didn't start it, but I didn't stop it either. Ryan stopped showing up at family gatherings, and Samantha avoided everyone, pretending she was sick. Their marriage cracked under the same lies they once hid behind. Mom called me one afternoon, sounding tired. It's all falling apart, Emily. Samantha doesn't know what to do. I'm sure she'll figure it out, I said simply. My tone wasn't angry anymore, just calm. I'd already burned through every emotion I had for them. Sometimes I'd pass by a cafe where Jack and I used to go. The memory didn't sting anymore. It was like watching an old movie where I no longer cared about the ending. I didn't seek revenge for attention or closure. I did it to take back what was mine, my peace, my dignity, my control. I didn't tell anyone about what I'd done. No social media posts, no gloating. Just silence. Life slowly became normal again. I started working on new projects, meeting new people, feeling lighter. Every small thing, morning coffee, clean air, quiet nights, felt like freedom. Jack lost everything built on lies. Samantha faced the consequences of her choices. And me? I finally walked away, not angry, not bitter, just free. Months passed after everything fell apart. The house was quiet now, the kind of quiet that didn't hurt anymore. I had stopped expecting phone calls or apologies. I was busy rebuilding my life, one piece at a time. Then one afternoon, there was a knock at my door. When I opened it, my mother stood there, holding a small bag and looking years older than before. She didn't rush to speak. She just stared for a moment, her eyes soft and heavy with guilt. Finally, she said, "Can we talk?" I hesitated but stepped aside. We sat in the living room where so many arguments had once happened. The silence between us felt different this time. Not angry, just full of things left unsaid. "I owe you an apology," she began quietly. "I should have listened. I should have believed you." Her hands trembled slightly as she spoke. "I wanted peace in the family so badly that I ignored what you went through. I thought you were overreacting, but I see now how wrong I was." Her words didn't come out rehearsed. They sounded tired, honest, real. For the first time, I saw her not as the mother who dismissed my pain, but as a woman who finally saw the damage her silence had done. I didn't rush to comfort her. I just listened. I'd waited too long for this moment to interrupt it. After a while, she looked up and said, "You were stronger than all of us, Emily. You faced it when I looked away. I'm sorry for every time I made you feel like your feelings didn't matter. There was a time when hearing that would have made me break down, but now I just felt calm. I had already gone through the pain, the anger, and the revenge. What was left was understanding, not for her mistakes, but for my own growth." "I appreciate that, Mom," I said softly. "But forgiveness doesn't mean things go back to how they were." She nodded slowly, tears in her eyes. "I know. I just hope one day you'll let me be part of your life again." "I don't hate you," I replied. "But I need space that's mine, without old wounds reopening. Forgiving you isn't for you. It's for me." We sat there quietly. She looked around the room, noticing how much had changed, new furniture, brighter colors, lighter energy. She smiled faintly. "You've built something beautiful here," she said. "I had to," I answered. "It's the only way I could move on." She reached out, gently touched my hand, and then stood up. Before leaving, she said, "I'm proud of you, Emily. Truly." After she left, I sat for a while thinking about everything that had happened. Her apology didn't erase the past, but it lifted something from my chest. I realized forgiveness wasn't about making her feel better. It was about letting myself breathe again. For the first time in years, I felt light. Not because someone finally said sorry, but because I no longer needed them to. The apartment was finally empty. I stood in the doorway, holding the keys, and looked around one last time. The silence felt different now, peaceful instead of heavy. For years, this place had carried my pain, my anger, and my memories of betrayal. But today, it just felt quiet and clean, like it was ready for something new. I walked slowly through the rooms, remembering the nights I cried here and the mornings I forced myself to start over. There had been so much chaos inside these walls, but now I could finally breathe. The hurt that once felt endless was gone, replaced by calm acceptance. I wasn't angry anymore. I was just free. When the new tenants arrived, a young couple smiling and full of hope, I greeted them with a warm nod. They reminded me of who I used to be before everything went wrong. I handed them the keys and said, "It's a peaceful place. I hope it stays that way for you." They thanked me, unaware of the history buried in these walls. I didn't feel the need to explain. Some stories are better left behind. As they walked in, I stepped outside and closed the door gently. I stood there for a moment, feeling the sun on my face. It wasn't victory that filled me, it was release. I didn't need revenge anymore, and I didn't crave apologies. What I needed was this: silence, peace, and the knowledge that I had survived and rebuilt my life on my own terms. I took a deep breath and smiled to myself. The air felt warm, the street was quiet, and for the first time in years, I wasn't looking back. I wasn't thinking about what they did or what they lost. I was thinking about what I had gained: strength, peace, and freedom. As I walked toward my car, I realized I wasn't carrying the past anymore. It was over. I had faced everything, healed, and let it go. When I drove away, I didn't feel sadness or regret, just a deep calm. The apartment, once filled with pain, now belonged to someone else. And I finally belonged to myself. Do you think I did the right thing by walking away and choosing peace over revenge? Or should I have tried to make things right with my family? I'd really love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoy stories like mine, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss the next one.